I figured what the heck, I'd get on here and talk about some stuff since I got a little free time. Took down the tree today and all that good jazz. Vacuum sleeper crapped out on me. So anyways, that's how my day went. Been really relaxed other than that. So we're going to talk about anything and everything today. You guys know the Tomahawk Tuesday. My videos have slowly got a little bit longer. But Tomahawk Tuesday, we're going to talk about, well, it's usually long anyways. Tomahawk Tuesdays are. But my videos have got a little bit longer here and there. So we're going to talk about the playoff picture today, around the league. Because, yes, there's a few things that happen around the league. The best games, just stuff like that. MVP race. So tomorrow I'm actually going in to get a CAT scan before work. I don't know what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. I cannot run machinery because of the medicine that I'm taking. They're going to check to see, make sure there's not a mass in here somewhere. I don't know what that means, but apparently I could have facial surgery if there is. I started noticing that my nostrils, that's why I've been making so many noises lately on the videos. My nostrils feel like they're getting smaller. That's why. So besides all the negatives, this weekend's going to be fun. I get to sit around and watch wildcard football and see who Kansas City might play in the next weeks. So first of all, let's just start off with what does this game mean for Kansas City? Look, if we've lost 2 games in really stupid fashion under Andy Reid, and I know this has been a problem since 1994, especially at home. But let's understand something, okay? Marty Schottenheimer, he was always a great regular season coach, and he never could win in the playoffs, so we're just going to ditch him. Dick Vermeil went and won a Super Bowl with the Rams, couldn't do anything in the playoffs with the Chiefs. So he did other shit with the Rams. Andy Reid did all right with Philadelphia. He got to a Super Bowl. He didn't win it, but he got there. He also won multiple playoff games with Philadelphia. So it's, at least he should be winning playoff games. In other words, I'm trying to say this game is going to determine for me whether it's an organization issue or if it's a coaching issue. Look, we lost to Tennessee last year in the dumbest fashion possible. Went out, scored 21 points in the first half, didn't score anything in the second. Gave up a massive lead. The defense was on the field 27 out of 30 minutes in the half. I remember all these stats like it's yesterday because I looked at them 100 times. Alex Smith got a total of 3 first downs in the second half. Travis Kelce went down in the second half. And, yeah, they just didn't move the ball. And the defense was constantly on the field. And people say, well, it's the defense's fault. They lost the game. They gave up those points. Well, guess what? If your offense ain't moving the ball worth a shit and the defense is on the field for 27 out of a 30-minute quarter, wow, that's ridiculous. That means our offense had the ball for a total of 3 minutes. That is it. You know how many 3 and outs you have to accomplish to pull that shit off? Amazing. Kendall Fuller was back out and playing this week. And he will have that cast out or off when they play. Not this weekend, but next weekend. So if we lose again, we've seen what the offense can do in the regular season, especially with Pat Mahomes now. If we lose this game because the offense doesn't do shit in the whole second half or scores 7 points in the second half, it is a Andy Reid problem. And as much as I like Andy Reid, as much as he's winning in the regular season, his ass needs to go. But who would we replace him with? Mike Sherman's a pretty good head coach. You could say it was his fault in Green Bay. It's not. He spent 10 years there, won a Super Bowl, went deep in the playoffs multiple times, and either lost to the Super Bowl champions or lost to the people that went to the Super Bowl. It's not a Mike Sherman problem. Would Mike Sherman be a good fit in Kansas City? Oh, yeah, he would. Absolutely. I think he would take us pretty far, really. He's experienced in the playoffs. It's just another day for him. That's who I would replace with Andy Reid if it came down to it. Because guess what? They're without Mike Sherman right now, and they're still doing the same old shit. I mean, hell, they got blown out by the Lions 31-0. Oh, well, Aaron Rodgers got hurt. Aaron Rodgers is always getting hurt. Who cares? Aaron Rodgers needs to retire. He is always getting hurt. I seen a deal the other day. This kind of off topic. You know what? Everybody's got their favorite player. Everybody's got their favorite and the guy that they like. And I get it. Colin Cowherd likes Andrew Luck. But this guy, he really kisses his ass. Like, he really just, it's all hail Andrew Luck. I get it. Andrew Luck had a good season. He's definitely the comeback player of the year. If he don't get it, I don't know who the hell would. But I'm not going to bend over and kiss Andrew Luck's ass. Eric Berry is by far my favorite player. Patrick Mahomes is by far my favorite player. But I'm not going to sit here and say that the Chiefs shouldn't cut Eric Berry next year because he never plays. I mean, I get it. He's been hurt. He couldn't control the bone spurs thing. But goddamn, we need a safety. We need a safety. And if he's not playing in the playoffs to help us, what's the point? I'm completely blunt and I'm brutally honest. And I'm not here to kiss Andrew Luck's ass, and I'm not here to hail him either. Is he a good player? Yes. Is he cracked up to what Colin Cowherd makes him out to be, like MVP material? Hell no. He's good. He's above average, but he's definitely not the MVP this year. He's not even in the race, to be exact. It's between Drew Brees and Patrick Mahomes. But on the topic of Andrew Luck, he played like shit the first 6 games. They went 1-5. And then he made a massive comeback, and they won 9 out of their last 10 or something like that. What's Andrew Luck's biggest problem? Well, he fumbles all the time. I don't know how many times the snap has hit him in the chest, and he just drops it. One was actually a touchdown when Houston played the Colts. Okay, so I made a mistake. The whole DeAndre Hopkins dropping a ball all year never happened. That's bullshit. It did happen. Whoever made that was a false article. I thought that was kind of iffy, but I could see DeAndre Hopkins doing it. He's a great player. The reason I know this is because I watched the Colts and Texans highlights, and in overtime, he dropped a wide open pass that he clearly should have caught. Number 2 mistake where I was wrong. The Colts and the Texans split this year. The Texans went to the Colts and beat them. The Colts came to Houston and beat Houston. Why? Because it was a 3rd down and 4, and Andrew Luck got Jadeveon Clowney to jump early. And that guaranteed them to run out the clock. The other game, look, if the Texans didn't win that game, it was a gimme. It was a gimme. Andrew Luck threw multiple balls that should have been interceptions. He fumbled like twice. That's another thing I'm going to go over here in a little bit. He wants to bash on Cam Newton this whole year and say, oh, I don't care if he was hurt. But then again, he's going to say, oh, Andrew Luck wasn't 100% the first 6 weeks. Yeah, he was. He just sucked. The whole team sucked. So he's very lopsided. But he did make a video today that I completely agreed with. It was Colin's top 10. He said a lot of reasonable and very true things in there. Like I said, I don't hate Colin Cowherd. I agree with him, and I disagree with him on things. So, if we lose in that fashion this year, I think it's just time for Andy Reid to go. If the defense gives it up, the defense gives it up. They're clearly our weak point. Regardless of if Bob Sutton retires over this next year, or regardless of what happens this year, I don't care if we even win the Super Bowl this year, Bob Sutton needs to go. Bob Sutton is... Look, the players have had time. They're used to each other. They've been playing with each other for a whole year now. They're all young. I get it. They pulled themselves together. Bob Sutton is lining people up in the wrong positions. He's playing man coverage on the last drive of the game when zone has worked all damn game. You can't do that. Man coverage is the worst thing you could possibly run on the last drive of the game. Worst thing. Because if you run Tampa 2, let's say you run Tampa 2, where you got a big hole in the middle of the field because of safety split. Guess what? At least you got guys in zone that can tackle them in the middle of the field. At least you got guys guarding the flats. If you play man coverage and you get beat one-on-one, it's done. You got one guy to the end zone. That's just the way that it is. You don't run something the entire game that somewhat works and then change it. So here's what I'm going to do. Let's go to... All right, we're going to start off with the Colts and Texans. Personally, I think the Colts should have lost both games, and I think the Texans probably would have bumped them out of the playoffs. But anyways, it is what it is. I believe they played Week 8 and Week 14, I think, is when they played. So we're going to go to regular season. We're going to go to Week 8, I believe it was. Where is it? No, that was the Colts and Raiders. Okay. Like I said, this is probably going to be a long video, but it always is a long video. Must just be the mouse pad. Here, let me just make this easy. So it was So the Texans were 1-3 at this point. Come on, load in. Oh, of course. Sorry, I know I'm taking a while. I'm trying to get the right information here. So we're going to talk about the Colts and the Texans first. They split this year. Like I said, I think the Texans should have won both games. They had the other one wrapped up, and they had them stopped. They needed to have them stopped, and Javion Clowney jumped off sides. So one game, the Colts jumped out fast, and the Texans came back. And then the other game, the Texans jumped out fast, and the Colts came back. So Deshaun Watson was 29 for 42, 375 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 INT when the Texans won 37-34. The Colts were 1-3 and the Texans were 1-3 at the time, so the Colts were the first win. Lamar Miller only had 49 rushing yards, but Deshaun Watson had another 41 and Alfred Blue had another 31. So they tore him up on the ground game and they tore him up in the air. He had 2 receivers over 100 yards. Deshaun Watson, good Lord. DeAndre Hopkins had 169 yards receiving on 10 catches. And Colty had 109 yards on 11 catches. So DeAndre Hopkins tore him apart. Andrew Luck fumbled twice, and J.J. Watt forced 2 of them. Both of them were recovered by the Texans. So there you go. There's your proof. Now I'm not going to go through here and go through every single Andrew Luck fumble of the season, but I know he fumbles a lot. So Andrew Luck's side of the things, this was probably his best game of the year. 464 yards, 4 touchdowns, and no INTs. The rushing game was non-existent. 16 yards, 11 yards, and 10 yards. Oh, and 4. Of course, the receiving game was out of the roof. Andrew Luck fumbled twice. He lost 1. Ryan Kelly fumbled once and lost 1. So there you go. Fumbling machine. So what it boils down to is, who do I got? Well, look, the Colts are a decent team. I think Andrew Luck plays really good against the Colts. But I just don't see them beating the Texans. I really don't. The one time they did beat the Texans was simply because a guy was offsides. There was a lot that goes into that game, don't get me wrong. But if Javion Clowney wouldn't have jumped offsides, they definitely would have got that stop. I'm a firm believer in that because the Colts were just running the ball, trying to run the timeout. The Colts do the Texans do a incredible job of just rushing the crap out of Andrew Luck, and I think that's why he doesn't have that much. He does have success against the Texans, but at the same time he doesn't, because he turns the ball over a lot. This is something that Colin Cowherd failed to talk about. You know, how many times has Patrick Mahomes fumbled the ball this year? I don't know, once, maybe twice. Andrew Luck fumbles the ball about once every game, and I mean that literally. And we're not talking about bad snaps. We're talking about him just not handling it. Andrew Luck had 1 pick, 2 touchdowns in the second meeting, 399 yards. Passes for a lot of yards against him. T.Y. Hilton had almost 200 yards. He was 1 yard shy. So T.Y. Hilton's a guy that gashes him. Fumbles. Oh, wow, this was a game where Andrew Luck didn't fumble. Chester Rogers fumbled once, and he lost, and he didn't even lose it. So that's probably the difference maker right there, was he didn't cause a fumble. Or Andrew Luck didn't fumble. Deshaun Watson, 267 yards, 1 touchdown. He had 35 yards on the ground. They held the running game at par. That's what it was. And this was also the game. No, DeAndre Hopkins played. He only had 36 yards. So they shut DeAndre Hopkins down is what they did. So the coaching was a little bit better. Yeah, that's about it. That's about all there is to say about that game. So, like, let's look at the Tennessee game, for example, when it comes down to talking about Andrew Luck, because I know he fumbled in that game. Andrew Luck definitely had problems with the Titans. I know it looks like it blew him out at the end of the game, or it looks like they blew him out, but they really didn't. This game was really close until about 6 minutes in the fourth quarter, and then they picked it off, and they went up by 10 again, and then Blaine Gabbert had to go for it on 4th down. Obviously didn't get it, and they ran it in for a touchdown. That's how the score ended up the way that it is. So, Colts, 285 yards, 3 touchdowns. He threw a pick 6. Marlon Mack tore it up on the ground, 119 yards and a touchdown. The receivers really didn't do a whole lot. He had 77, 61, 60, which is pretty good. But, I mean, there wasn't one dominant receiver, which is good if you're a Colts fan. right now they're saying that Marlon Mack fumbled one and he lost one. But I know for a fact that's bullshit because I've seen Andrew Luck fumble it twice, and it was a snap. He just got it back. I don't know why that's not in there. That doesn't make any sense. But I watched the game. I know for a fact he did. I just don't see him beating the Texans. I really don't. Not at home, not in a playoff game. I just don't see it happen. I see the Texans winning this game. So, moving on to that. We're going to have Dallas and Seattle. See, when did they play? They played each other earlier this year, too. Yeah, that was, what is this, week 3? So, week 3 they played in Seattle, and Seattle won 24-13. I don't see Dallas winning this game. I don't. Dallas plays a really fast defense. It's in Dallas, but it doesn't really matter. Russell Wilson's a better quarterback. Russell Wilson may not have the defense, but he has everything else. He has the better coaching. Jason Garrett's like 1-3 in the playoffs. I agree. He got ripped off in Green Bay that year when Dez Bryant was reaching for the goal line with one hand, and they said he didn't have control. But it was a 0-0 ball game until the second quarter, and the Seahawks just blew it open in the second quarter. Dak Prescott was 19 for 34, 168 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions that game. Zeke Elliott rushed for 100 yards. This is the one game that the Dallas Cowboys lost when Zeke went over 100 yards. This is the one team they lost to. Zeke Elliott fumbled one and he lost one. Now you go to the other side. Russell Wilson, 16 for 26, 192 yards, 2 touchdowns. He really didn't throw it a whole lot, but the running game tore it up. Chris Carson ran it 32 times for 102 yards, wore down the defense. The defense is really fast, but they get worn down when you run it at them consistently. Tyler Lockett, 4 catches, 77 yards. Tyler Lockett tore him up. Not a surprise there. Earl Thomas had 2 picks. Now, you could argue and say that Earl Thomas was the reason they won this game, but they won by 11 points. I got Seattle, even though they're the road team. Chargers and Baltimore, another team that played each other this year. All these teams have played each other this year, except for the Bears and Eagles, I do believe. I do believe that is. Okay, so the Ravens. Look, man, they got a better offense than the Chargers. They're 9th in the league in offense. I don't care if the Chargers are loaded. We've seen what happened last time, and that was in L.A. What do you think is going to happen this time? Defense, number 1. Their defense is number 9. They're 22nd in passing. That's their downside. But they're 2nd in rushing. So, in other words, what I'm trying to say is the only way the Chargers are going to beat this Baltimore team is if they force them to pass it. And do I see the Chargers shutting down their run game? No, absolutely not. Especially after what they let go of last time. They let them have a ton of rushing yards that game. So we're going to go back to that game, and we're going to look at that a little bit. And I'll tell you what I see and what I make my determination of. Can't believe this video has been 24 minutes already. It's crazy. Why that's in progress. We'll talk about the MVP race. Look, Drew Brees is a veteran, great player. Don't get me wrong. But look, we're not here to give participation awards for how long you've been in the league. With no offense to Drew Brees. I love Drew Brees. Great football player. But you know what? It is what it is. And he's not he's not in the MVP. He's not ahead of Mahomes in the MVP race. He's just not. And there's a reason I say that. He's not up to par with him on catches. He's not God, brain scrambled. He's not up to par with him on touchdown passes. He's way behind him. He's got less interceptions than Pat Mahomes. His passer rating is better than Pat Mahomes by a long shot. I mean, nobody's catching Drew Brees this year. Or was going to catch Drew Brees this year. Yardage, way behind him. At this point, you're just looking for reasons not to give Pat Mahomes the MVP. Why do I say that? Because Pat Mahomes has been he's been a starter for 1 year. He's been in the league for 2 years. Drew Brees has been in this league for how many years? And he's still behind this guy? As much as I love Drew Brees and as good as he is and all the records he has, Pat Mahomes had to deal with defensive injuries all year, let alone he had the worst defense all year. Drew Brees did not. Pat Mahomes lost a star running back. Drew Brees did not. Pat Mahomes had to deal with losing Sammy Watkins game in and game out. Drew Brees did not, which I don't know if Sammy Watkins is going to be back or not, but that definitely helped. They just said he was done for the season. I don't know if he's going to be back for the playoffs or not. So let's look at what happened the last time. That's my opinion. Okay, you're just looking for reasons not to give it to Pat Mahomes, and that's not because I love Pat Mahomes. I'm a big fan of him, but he deserves it. He deserves it, plain and simple. Which, by the way, did the Saints play the Patriots this year? Nope. Did the Saints play the Chargers this year? Nope. Think about it. So, stats from last game. Ravens were at LA. So, Lamar Jackson, 11 for 22, only had 10 incompletions, 204 yards and a touchdown. I think in my opinion, you might as well call it a fact. He threw the ball really well this game. Gus Edwards tore him up, 14 catches, 92 yards. God, man, I'm so off tonight. Running game. Gus Edwards, 14 carries, 92 yards, 6.6 yards a carry. Lamar Jackson, 13 carries, 39 yards, average 3 yards a carry. Kenneth Dixon was down there with 28 yards. Receiving, Mark Andrews, 2 catches, 83 yards, a touchdown. That was a tight end, I'm pretty sure. And John Brown had a couple catches for 27 yards. Kenneth Dixon fumbled it once, lost one of them. Lamar Jackson fumbled once, but he got it back. Brandon Carr had a pick. Marlon Humphrey had a pick. 2 sacks. Actually, no, 3.5 sacks were recorded on the game. 4 sacks. They sacked him 4 times. So they got pressure. They got pressure on Andrew Luck. That was the main thing. Baltimore even missed a makeable field goal. They did kick like a 64-yarder or something like that. Obviously, he missed that one. But I'm talking about another one that they missed that they should have made. So on the Chargers side, Phillip Rivers, 23 for 37, 181 yards, 2 touchdowns. They shut his ass down. That defense had him on lock. They didn't let him throw it anywhere. They sacked him all the time. They constantly got pressure on him. Melvin Gordon, they didn't let him run for anything. 12 carries, 41 yards. They totally shut the Chargers down. Keenan Allen only had 58 yards. Antonio Gates fumbled one. He lost it. That was 6 points. Mark Ingram fumbled one. Or Melvin Ingram fumbled one. Or no, Melvin Ingram forced the fumble. Man, I'm just so all over the place tonight, really. They sacked Lamar Jackson twice. So there you have it. If you want to go by team stats, Baltimore dominated them in total yardage, 361 to 198. Baltimore dominated in passing yards, 202 to 147. Rushing, 159 to 151, or 159 to 51. Average yards of play, 6 to 3.5. They obviously beat them 22 to 10. Colin Cowherd said this game was close. No, it wasn't. It was somewhat close until the pressure just got to Phillip Rivers, and then he started crying. He started bitching to the refs. He started turning the ball over. That went for points. Sacks allowed, you know how that went. I just told you. Third down efficiency, the Chargers were actually better than them by 2%. Time of possession, Baltimore had it 31 minutes to 28 minutes. So they had the ball for almost the same amount of time. They just got beat. The defense definitely got to the O-line because the Chargers had 8 penalties. I watched that game. I know how it went. What's my opinion? They're in Baltimore. It's going to be twice as loud. Baltimore's winning this game, no doubt. Chicago and Philadelphia. Here's an interesting one. Here's my honest and true opinion on this game. If Nick Foles can play like Nick Foles in the playoffs and score all them points, Philadelphia's winning this game. If it is a low-scoring game, Chicago's going to win, hands down. It just depends on which way it goes. I don't know which way it's going to go. It's anecdotal. It could go either way. It really could. But that's my prediction. If Nick Foles is out there and he's scoring points like he usually does in the playoffs, Nick Foles is being Nick Foles. I got Nick Foles. I can't really make a prediction on that game there. For those of you that care, the Bears are 21st in offense. Eagles are 14th. Defense, Bears are 3rd. Eagles are 23rd. Passing, Bears are 21st. Eagles are 7th. And rushing, Eagles are 28th. Bears are 11th. So you can see how Nick Foles has picked that Eagle offense up a little bit. As goes for the last meetings. Last year, the Bears weren't that good. The Eagles beat them 31-3. That was on a Monday night or Sunday night, something like that. Thursday night, something of that sort. Then they played in 2016. Eagles won 29-14. But the Bears won in 2014, 34-28. I don't know. That game could go either way. So for the AFC bracket, how do I see it going? Well, geez. I'm gonna say the Texans beat the Colts, and I'm gonna say the Ravens beat the Chargers. In that case, the Ravens would come to Arrowhead. The Colts would go to the Texans would go to New England. Now, where do I see it going from there? Look, if Kansas City's good at one thing, and that's their pass rush. That's about the only thing they're good at. Their defense has somewhat played when it matters. There were several games this year that we lost that the defense, all they had to do was make one play and the game was over. And a lot of times the ball hit them right in the hands and they dropped an interception. Okay, I get that. Those were games they could have won. Here's the real question. Is Kansas City going to learn? A lot of these teams that they played, or that they're going to play in the playoffs or have a chance of playing, they've already played them once. Are they going to learn to beat that team? Did they learn to beat that team is what I'm trying to get at. or are they going to fail in the same aspects? If this defensive pass rush plays like it does when it's playing good, there's literally not a team that's going to beat Kansas City besides maybe New England. New England has the best shot. Baltimore, I would say if they came to Arrowhead, the play scheme's going to be different. I don't think the Ravens will be ahead all game like they have been. The Ravens are that team where they have to play ahead to win. If they're not ahead, they're probably not going to catch back up because that's the way their offense is built. They have to be ahead. They're a running team. If they're not ahead, they can't function. They have to pass, and that's their weak spot. If the Ravens come to Arrowhead, I got Kansas City again. They've already beat them once. They got the scheme. Kansas City tried to give them the game the first time, but it didn't work. They missed the game-winning field goal. They tried to give them, the ball last, and they couldn't do anything with it. They tried to give them a chance in overtime with a fumble and the ball last, and they still couldn't do it. I think there's a different scheme this time. I still think the run game will gash them. Don't get me wrong. I really do. I still think the run game will just screw them up completely. But I think Patrick Mahomes will stay ahead. He'll get touchdowns instead of field goals. Even with as good as their defense is, I still think, especially with Sammy Watkins, I still think he'll carve that defense up. Look, this team's averaging 26 points a game. That's never been done in NFL history. You can argue the fact, he had four turnovers against the Rams. He still scored 51 points. That's absurd to have that many turnovers and still score that many points. Even Patrick Mahomes knows you turn the ball over that much in the NFL, you won't win. If the Chargers come to Arrowhead, I don't see them winning. The Chargers haven't won back-to-back in Arrowhead since God knows when. I know they finally broke the curse this week, and hopefully we finally break the curse this year. But the point is, this D-line is playing lights out when it comes to pressure. It's not really going to affect the Ravens much because they don't have to pass. But if you force the Ravens to pass, the pass rush is going to get to Lamar Jackson. Not so much as it would Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers, it's going to bother the shit out of him. If Phillip Rivers comes to Arrowhead, they're going to eat him alive. I truly believe that. They had him beat in the second game, too. They just let it go. Bob Sutton changed the scheme, and everything went to shit. They quit pressuring him as much. Honestly, I think the scariest team is Baltimore to come to Kansas City. I really do. Besides New England. The other game, Houston. Do I see Houston winning in New England? I think it's a possibility, but I still say no. New England's undefeated at home this year, and I really think there's no way in hell you're beating them at home in the playoffs. So I got New England and Kansas City winning. I got New England and Kansas City in the AFC Championship. How do I see this game going? Lord have mercy, I have no idea. Pat Mahomes has seen him once. Tom Brady has not lost to a quarterback under 25 ever. But if anybody, it's going to be Pat Mahomes. And I say that because I'm pretty sure we got the Patriots next year too at some point in the schedule. Eventually he's going to find a way to beat this team. If Kansas City, I don't know because I don't know how Kansas City's going to play. I don't know what they're going to do in the playoffs. I don't know if they're going to be the old Chiefs or the new Chiefs. But I'll give Pat Mahomes the benefit of the doubt. The Patriots play bad on the road. I think if they come to Arrowhead, I think Tom Brady has a rough time. He's another one of those quarterbacks where pressure just eats him alive. But the thing is, nobody ever pressures him. If Kansas City can get pressure on him, I think Kansas City can win. I really do. Who do I see in the Super Bowl? Chiefs versus the Saints. If the Chiefs make it that far, I don't see them winning because the Saints have a more rounded football team. But the Saints have faltered a couple weeks on and off and not been able to win because of their offense. So that's my opinion on that. Before I cut this video off, Antonio Brown released a statement that he requested a trade from Pittsburgh. You got a deep ball threat for a quarterback. Why the hell would you want to get out of that system? And I know exactly why it is. He's a me person. He's not really a team person. This guy, look, man, just like Bill Belichick says, Jamie Collins, you want to go make money? All right, I'll trade you to Cleveland. That's what he did. If Antonio Brown wants to make money, let him go. Let him go to some dysfunctional organization that's not going to do anything for him. That's, because here's the thing. When Antonio Brown was getting stats, Pittsburgh wasn't winning. But when he wasn't getting the numbers he wanted, Pittsburgh was winning. Good luck, Antonio Brown. I'm not saying it's the death of his career. I still think he's a great player, but you're screwing yourself. So, yeah, I just wanted to get on here and ramble on a little bit about certain stuff. I get bored sometimes. Hopefully, I can pull another person on for like a talk show thing and Skype them on the computer and talk about stuff there to where you guys can hear it through the video. Other than that, that's all I got. I'll see you after the wild card weekend.